Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's session. My name is Joaquin Francisco Carnicer. I am Education Manager at British Council Portugal, and it's a real pleasure to welcome you to our webinar today, called Study Visas and the ETA, or Electronic Travel Authorization, Requirements for Entering the UK. As you know, and as we highlighted in the invitation we sent, when planning an effective educational strategy to study in the UK, it's absolutely essential to consider and fully understand all aspects related to the visas applicable to your particular circumstances. We appreciate this can be sometimes seen like a complex area, but it's a crucial step towards realizing your academic ambitions in the United Kingdom. And that's precisely why, in today's session, we will be breaking down the requirements, timelines, and associated costs, of course, for these visas. And of course, we'll be addressing a significant new development that many of you have inquired about, the new Electronic Travel Authorizations, or ETA. We will explain what it is, who it affects, and how to manage it. We'll also cover other practical matters and answer your most frequent questions. And to guide us through this landscape and offer her expert insights, we are delighted to have a special guest with us. It's my great pleasure to introduce Amy Vincent, Director of IEC in Portugal. As you probably know, IEC is a highly regarded international student mobility agency representing a significant number of prestigious British universities here in Portugal. Amy and her team possess a wealth of experience managing these applications, and we are really thrilled that she's here to share her valuable knowledge with all of us today. Welcome, Amy. It's wonderful to have you with us today. So, without further ado, let's delve into the world of visas and authorizations for studying in the UK. Let's begin. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Joaquin, and thank you for having us here to do this talk today. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with the British Council. So today we're going to talk about student visa and the ETA requirements for studying at UK universities. Here we have kind of the agenda for what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to start off by introducing who we are at IEC, if you're not already familiar, and our services that we offer. Then we'll look at the context around why we're having a talk today about visas and the ETA. Then we'll look at who can apply for a visa, the steps to follow to get your UK student visa, the necessary documents you'll need to the necessary documents you'll need to produce to present, some frequently asked questions. Then we'll look at what you can and cannot do with a student visa, look at some advice and useful resources, and then touch quickly on the ETA and the graduate route visa. And as always, there'll be time for questions at the end too. So who we are. IEC are experts in international university education since 1996, when the company was founded in Spain. Then recently, about 2 years ago now, we've also expanded into Portugal. We're the official representatives of some of the best universities in the world. That means that universities trust us to represent them abroad. So we are acting on behalf of the university to promote them for students to be in the country, to give you any advice you might need about the university, about the application process. We're here to help with that. Thinking about the UK, in the UK, we represent more than 60 UK universities, which is quite a big number. Since these last 29 years, we work with around 300 students every year. So overall, we've successfully advised more than 10,000 students. Something that really would make us stand out is that we offer transparency throughout the entire process. So if you're going to work with us on your university applications, the application is yours. Everything you do is your application. We're here to help, and it's all still your application. You have 100% autonomy. It's just we're a helping hand along the way. And we also offer tailored assistance for any unexpected situation. That could be maybe not meeting the grades that you needed to get into university. We'll see what we can do to help, to show you what the alternative options are. Or it could be something as simple as you've got to the UK. Well, simple is a bit of a problem, but you're on your way to the UK and British Airways have lost your baggage and you're not really sure what to, how to proceed. And that everything from applications to administrative processes, we're here to help you. These are the 5 E's of IEC that we think represent what our company stands for. So education as a pillar of society and what we dedicate our work to. Experience, we have a wealth of experience regarding international education. We bring that to, again, everything that we do. We try and offer excellence, not only throughout the entire process and through our services, but also through the universities that we represent. Empathy as well. We understand that, you know, for lots of you, this is the first time that you're going abroad. It's a really big experience, a really big decision that you've made to move to another country to continue education, and we understand that, you know, it's not easy, and we're here to support you with that too. And enthusiasm, because even though it can be a little bit scary, it should also be a fun process. You should, you know, it's a really exciting time applying to university, going to study abroad, and we want to make the process fun as well. So we understand it can be daunting, but we're really here to help you take the most enjoyment possible out of it. So in regards to what we offer, we can help you find pre-university summer courses, which are really nice for making your profile stand out when you're looking at applying to universities. Also really good to help you get a taster of different courses. You know, if you're not 100% sure what you want to study, a summer course can be a great way to find out if you know you're thinking along the right lines. We also help with bachelor's and master's applications, also PhDs. For that, it's more helping you express your ideas through your study proposal and the essays that you might be required to write, rather than finding the PhD itself. Also English courses and exam preparation, as we're going to see, it's now a requirement to present, it's always a requirement to present a formal English exam, and maybe if you're going to want to study abroad and maybe you need a little preparation. Also other exams, some really competitive universities now ask for exams apart from English, for example, maths exams, and we can help you find tutors for that. And we also offer administrative support visas, which we're going to talk about today, accommodation, degree recognition, which is homologação in Portuguese. There's not like a perfect translation into English. And here's just some of the universities that students we have worked with over the past few years have entered into. It's not all of them, just a selection. So on to the theme of the day, visas. I'm going to start by giving a little bit of context. So since Brexit, European students now need a visa to enter the UK. Previously, it wasn't a necessity, but now it is because of Brexit, and we're no longer, well, the UK is no longer in the European Union. Today, we're going to focus on student visas for university students, not for high school. This is a specialized talk for university, and we're going to focus particularly on students coming from the EU, specifically Portugal, although the process is the same for all European countries. It could be that you maybe are a different passport holder. We will touch on that briefly, but for all intents and purposes, today is mostly about the EU. So who can apply for a student visa? You can apply for a UK student visa if you're over 16 years old and you hold an unconditional university offer. That's to say that you've applied to university, they've given you an offer, and then you've met the conditions that they've given to you, which might be, you know, get an average of 16 in the Diploma de Ensino Secundario or 36 in the IB. So you have to meet all of the conditions, and then you're eligible to apply to the visa. You also have to have the funds to live in the UK and pay for your course. We'll touch on the financial requirements in a further slide. You also need to prove your English level. Before Brexit, I mean, you always needed to have a good English level to be able to go and study in the UK, but before Brexit, maybe there was a little bit more flexibility with this, but now because you require a visa, you have to prove with a formal English exam that you have the required level to study in the UK. And if you're under 18, you need to have your parents' consent to apply for a visa. So to apply for the student visa, as I said, you need to have an unconditional offer. So that means when results day comes, you need to upload your high school diploma, whichever one you're doing, to the portal of your university. If you're doing the IB or A levels, it might be that you're already linked through UCAS, your school will do it automatically, but you need to show the university that you've met the conditions of your offer. So that'll be the English exam and the academic requirements. Then you need to receive something called a CAS letter from the university. CAS stands for Confirmation of Acceptance of Studies, and this is basically the university saying to the government, yes, we've checked this student, we confirm that this student has met the requirements and is going to come and join us in September. And this is the formal document you need from your university. It might be that you've met your conditions of your offer, you have an unconditional offer, but you don't have the CAS yet. Depending on the university, sometimes it takes a little bit of time, don't worry, but you do need this letter before you can start the application process, and you can't get this letter until you've met the conditions of your offer. Then you complete the application and the corresponding payments through the UK government immigration webpage. It's really important. We'll see again in the following slides which website you need to go to and all that. But through the application form, you'll need to scan your face to provide biometric details, fill in your travel history, your immigration history, and fill in the details from your CAS. All of the information that you will need for the visa application is on that CAS letter. So I mentioned that you'll need to have the proof, the financial requirements studying in the UK. We're going to look at now the letter from your bank that you'll need to show that you have the proof of funds. So to demonstrate that you have the funds, what you need to show in a letter from your bank is that you have in one bank account the tuition fees minus anything already paid. So if you're given a scholarship, for example, you can deduct that cost. If you've paid a deposit, you can deduct that cost. This will also be indicated on your CAS. So you need to demonstrate your tuition fees plus 9 months of living costs. The living costs are determined by the UK government, and they are at £1,483 per month for London times 9. Or £1,136 a month for any university outside of London. So you need to have sorry, I went too quickly with the number there. You need to have in one bank account for 28 days. This is the important part. You need to show that you've had these funds in one bank account for the past 28 days. It's really important that this bank account is either of the student or of one of his parents. Sometimes there's the case that maybe a grandparent or an uncle is, helping out and paying the tuition fees, which is really, really lovely and really generous. But for the sake of this letter, those funds need to be in either the student's bank account or the parent's bank account, and this whole total needs to be in one account. So imagine, for example, you're going to a university that costs £20,000 per year. You haven't paid a deposit, and that's with a scholarship. So £20,000, and then for simplicity, to not have to do too much mental maths, let's imagine it's £1,000 a month rather than 1,136. So you would need to show that in one bank account you have £20,000 plus £9,000, £29,000 converted into it can be any currency, but let's say for simplicity that's 31,000 euros. Need to show that that amount has been in one bank account for the past 28 days before you apply for the visa. Once you obtain that letter from the bank, you then have 31 days to apply for your visa. This is why we always recommend, wait until you have your CAS until asking the bank for this letter, because banks can usually issue them on the day quite quickly. But if there's any problems and it takes a while for you to receive your CAS and those 31 days pass, then you would have to ask for the letter again anyway, because the letter only has a validity of 31 days. Really important, you do not need to upload this letter. So European students are actually exempt from presenting this letter, this proof of funds. However, there is something in the small print which says Home Office may ask. That means that the government has the right immigration has the right to ask you for this letter at any point in the process, even though you're not required to upload it. And if they ask for it and you don't have it, it could be a motive to deny your visa. Denying the visa doesn't just mean that you can't go to university that year. It could mean that you can't access the UK for up to 10 years in the severest of cases. Then it can also impact, other travel as well. For example, if you try and get a visa to go to the US, one of the questions on that visa application is, have you ever been denied a visa from another country? And then you'd have to answer yes. So even though it's really unlikely they're going to ask you for this letter, since you're exempt, it's really, really, really important to have it prepared just in case, because the consequences can be quite bad if you don't have it. So in other, if the student is not the account holder of these funds and it's in one of the parents' bank accounts, you'll also need to provide an authorization letter for you'll also need an authorization letter from the parents that say that you give permission for your child to use these funds for their university study. Then you'll also need a birth certificate or adoption certificate to prove that you are that student's parents, so that you're not just saying they're your parents. So those are the extra documents that are needed alongside this proof of funds letter if the student is not the account holder. Other documents that you'll need, if the applicant is under 18 years of age, they'll also need an authorization letter from the parents, not just to use the funds, but also to apply for the visa itself. Then To be able to apply for the visa online through the UK government webpage, you'll also need a biometric passport. The majority of passports now are biometric. So usually if you look at the front cover of your passport, there's a little kind of rectangle icon on it. That's the chip. And during the visa process, you're going to scan your passport with your phone. Your phone is going to read the chip. So it's really important that you have that. Sometimes passports can get damaged, particularly with water damage that stops the biometric chip working. In that case, you would have to go to a visa application center to get your photo taken, scan fingerprints, and provide that data. You can still do the rest of the application online, then you have to go to a visa application center. Then you'll also need a mobile phone, which is compatible for scanning the chip, but most mobile phones these days are. The CAS letter, you need the CAS letter, of course, to apply for the visa, and also the credit card to pay the fees for the visa application. Another important thing to mention is you need to physically have the passport with you when you're applying for the visa. Maybe this sounds silly, but like, because you have to scan the passport with your phone, you need to have the passport physically with you, because it's not just your passport details like passport number, expiry date that you need the physical passport with you. So if you're planning, to holiday within Portugal, maybe you're going to a different city, or you're going to the beach during the summer around visa time, and you wouldn't think to usually take your passport with you because it's not necessary, make sure just to have it on hand just in case. Otherwise, you might have to travel back to go and get it, and it can disrupt your summer a bit, which isn't so nice. So now we're going to go into the frequently asked questions. When can I apply for the visa? When you have the CAS letter from your university and you have prepared the financial documents, then you can apply for the visa. Sometimes you need to apply for the visa from your home country. Sometimes we have cases maybe where a student turns 18, maybe they have their CAS already on the 1st of July, but they're going to turn 18 on the 17th of July. In those cases, we might recommend that you wait until after your 18th birthday, just so you don't need all the additional documents. That shouldn't be a problem. But once you have the CAS, you can apply for the visa. How long is the visa for? So the visa lasts for your duration of studies, plus usually a few months extra as well. When you apply for your visa, you're applying for the whole duration. You don't need to reapply every year. It's just the visa is for the duration of studies. When can you enter the UK? You can enter the UK after the date which is on your visa. So once you apply, you get an email, which we'll see an example of shortly, saying congratulations, you've been granted entry permission. You can enter the UK from the 9th of August, right? Or it's usually a bit better. From the 9th of August. That's when you can enter the UK, from the date on your visa letter. If you enter before that date, you would be entering as a tourist. So you would also need to get an ETA, which we're going to look at now. If you enter before that date, you're going to enter as a tourist. So you would then have to leave the country and then re-enter after the date which is on your visa letter. Otherwise, your visa won't be activated. So that's very important. I wouldn't recommend entering until after the date. It's also really important to mention that when your visa is in progress, you cannot enter the UK during that time. So between the moment that you apply for your visa and that your visa is accepted or granted, you cannot go into the UK, because that can cause some problems and also could be another motive to deny your visa. If you have some trips to the UK planned, like maybe you want to go and look at the campus with your family before you start, really check the dates on that, and I wouldn't recommend applying for the visa until you get back. Also, because of this, and sometimes maybe sometimes there's delays with visas and everything, we also don't recommend booking the flights until you have the visa and the date that you'll be allowed to enter the UK. And how much does it cost? So the visa application itself is £524, and when you're applying for the visa, you also have to pay for the immigration health surcharge. The immigration health surcharge gives you access to the NHS, so the public healthcare system in the UK. And this costs £776 per year. So you have to times that by the years of you pay for the whole course up front. So you times 776 by the amount of years that you're going to be studying, plus an extra half a year, because they add a little bit on the end usually. There's also the fast track visa. So if maybe you're doing A-levels and your results come out a little late, and then maybe the university can be a little bit slow in giving the CAS, you might want to apply for for a fast track visa, which gets you the results in an average of 5 days, is an extra £500. I think the next one is how long does it take? Yes. So the visa process takes, you usually receive your visa within an average of 3 weeks, but this depends. So for example, in July and August, that's kind of peak visa time. It can be a little bit longer, a little bit slower. Sometimes it says an average of 3 weeks, but you could get it in 3 days. It really depends. Unless you apply for this, you pay extra for this fast track visa, which has an average turnaround of 5 days. However, the 5 days is not a guarantee. It's just the majority of students receive their visa within those 5 days. If it takes longer, unfortunately, there's nothing really you can do. It's just you're kind of put to priority in the queue, but sometimes it doesn't happen, but usually the fast track visa is pretty fast. So yeah, it takes an average of 3 weeks. It just depends on the year. I mean, sometimes, for example, some political situation or a wild event might happen, which means that it takes a little bit longer, but 3 weeks is the average. If you look on the government webpage, there is a table which shows the average visa processing times in that moment. It has always stayed steady at 3 weeks, but it's worth maybe taking a look just for peace of mind. So now I'm going to take a look at what you can and cannot do on a student visa. So what you can do is study. You have to study on the course that you have your visa for, because your visa is linked, that you're being sponsored for the course that you have applied to that is written on your CAS. But yes, you can study. That's why you're there. You can also work for up to 20 hours per week, so you can get part-time work alongside your studies. 20 hours a week is a decent amount of time. I mean, even for UK students who don't require a visa, universities generally don't recommend that students work more than 20 hours per week anyway, because going to university should be the equivalent hours of a full-time job. So you should be studying 35 to 40 hours per week anyway, so plus 20 hours a week working, it's quite busy. Saying that, the UK, kind of the course structure in the UK is quite different to that of universities in Portugal and across Europe. So you're not going to be in classes all of the time. It's not like 9 to 5. It's not like going to school. So that does give you time and flexibility to get a part-time job alongside your studies. What you cannot do is access public funds like loans and pensions. You can't work in certain positions. You can work for 20 hours a week, but not in certain positions. For example, you can't work as a professional sports person or sports trainer. There's just a few professions that you can't do, but that's because they have separate visas for that specific role. You also cannot be self-employed, so you can work 20 hours a week for an employer. You can't be self-employed. And you also can't study in a school or academy. You also can't study in a school or academy with authority funding, which is referred to as maintained schools. So here I'm just going to leave you the images of two useful, first one's an app, the second one's a website. So when you're applying for the visa online, the part where you'll have to, you'll do it through on a laptop through the website, which is the one below, the gov.uk, the official website. But the part where you have to scan your passport, scan your face, that's through this app here, UK Immigration ID Check. It has a purple logo. There are other apps used for other immigration purposes with different color backgrounds. Those aren't the right ones. It is this one. It is the purple one. So make sure, yes, that you get the right app. And then the application's through the official website. So what happens after sending the application? After sending the application, usually within an average of 3 weeks, you'll receive an email from this email address on screen now, home.office.atlas@notifications.service.gov.uk, quite a long email address, with the subject application update. And you'll receive an email that looks like this. Dear, name of your student, your application for entry clearance as a student has been successful. And then it will say you have been granted permission to enter and stay in the UK as a student from this date until this date. The first date that they put, you shouldn't enter the UK until then. So that's, make sure always to check spam, because it's often this email ends up going to spam. We've had cases where students call us and go, I applied for my visa like 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, I don't have my visa, I don't know what's going on. We'll say, you need to check your spam, you need to check your spam, and it's been in the spam. So once you've sent your visa application, every day or two, always check your emails, look out for this email address. It does sound a bit strange with the subject application update. It doesn't sound necessarily important. It doesn't sound like, oh, your visa is inside this email. So make sure, yeah, that you're keeping an eye on your emails. That's it. So this email is just to inform you that your visa has been granted, but the visa is stored kind of virtually, electronically within your passport. So you don't need something physical. The email is just sort of notifying you of your visa status. So now we're going to talk about the Electronic Travel Authorization, the ETA, which is a new implementation from the government since April. So since the 2nd of April 2025, non-UK resident Europeans traveling to the UK need an ETA. This is for short visits. So to go and study, it's on the student visa. But if you're going for tourism, business, family visits, maybe, for example, you're going to go and study in the UK, or your son and daughters, and you want to maybe your son or daughter is going to study in the UK, and you want to go with them those first 3 or 4 days to help them get settled. You'll need to apply for an electronic travel authorization. The ETA is valid for 2 years or until the passport expiry date if it expires within the next 2 years, and it costs £16. So again, and the whole process again is done online. So it's through an online form, and again, like with the visa, you need to download this app, scan your face, and then you'll be informed again by email that your ETA has been approved. Be careful, because it really does have a cost of only £16. Since the UK government introduced this, loads of scam websites have popped up that look like they're the right one to do it through. We had a student recently that said, oh yes, I've got my ETA ready. I've paid the £65, and we said, like, £65? It's only 16. So be really careful that you go to the correct website. £16, and it lasts for 2 years. It's a fairly short form. It's pretty simple, but that will let you enter for the short visits. Now I'm going to touch quickly on the graduate route visa. So this is after you finished your studies. The graduate route visa gives permission for graduates to stay in the UK for at least 2 years after successful completion of a course in the UK. So to apply for the graduate route visa, you should be in the UK, you should have a student visa, and you should have studied an eligible course. Usually the courses have a minimum time period that you have to have studied. So shorter courses, maybe a 3-month or a 6-month course, don't usually give you access to the graduate route visa. And so what would happen, the graduate route visa is a visa, yes, that allows you to stay in the UK for at least 2 years after you've completed your degree to look for work. During those 2 years, you can work in any profession, and it's to give you a chance to find a job related to your degree and to spend more time in the UK. It's really important. You have quite a small time period to apply for this graduate route visa. I'm imagining that people watching today, you are here for the student visa, but I think this is important that you're aware of. For when in 3-4 years you're going to graduate, you can think, oh yeah, I watched a webinar on this. I must remember to apply for this visa. You have to apply for the graduate route visa from within the UK while you still have a student visa. So you have quite a short time period between when you graduate, so when you've finished your degree and the university informs Home Office that you have successfully completed your degree, and your student visa expiring. Usually the student visa expires 3-4 months after the completion of your course. So it's within that window that you need to apply for the graduate route visa. You might have heard of something that came out in the news last week. The government have published this white paper. This is an intention. This white paper said that they're looking to reduce the graduate route visa from 2 years to 18 months. At the moment, we don't know what's going to happen. It's not a law yet. It's not a rule. Things are constantly changing, but this is just the intention of the government at the moment. It's true that if you're starting, things are changing constantly. It's always a good idea to keep up to date. But as things stand at the moment, upon successful completion of your degree in the UK, you can stay for 2 years to look for a job. After that, you would need to move on to the skilled workers visa. But I think that's a webinar for another day. That was everything. Thank you everyone for listening. I'm just leaving my contact on the screen now. If you have any questions about specific cases, if there's anything you want help with, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And you have our website as well for more information, phone numbers. Yeah, feel free to get in touch, and thank you very much. I don't know if we have any questions, Joaquin. I'll stop sharing.
Yes, Amy, thank you so much for your very clear presentation. There are several questions from our audience. Some of these topics have been already covered or may have been already covered, but I think it's useful to clarify some things that are maybe uncertain. And for instance, we are often asked about key documentation when dealing with these visas. Apart from the CAS and passport, what are some other documents that students frequently overlook or don't prepare meticulously enough, which could potentially lead to delays? Which are the key missing documents here?
So I would reiterate again how important it is to prepare the financial documents. So technically, to fill in the visa application, you usually just need your CAS and your passport, and your mobile phone and a credit card. But it's really important to prepare that financial documentation, the letter of financial solvency, just in case you are asked for it. It's also important to make sure that you don't upload it. So I know I highlighted that in the presentation that you don't need to upload it, but actually uploading extra documentation that you haven't been asked for can cause delays, because if you upload something, that means that someone has to check it, whereas usually for Europeans, they're not going to ask you for it. So it can cause delays uploading extra documents that they don't ask for. And then, of course, as we looked at earlier, there's also the birth certificates, if you're a minor or if the funds are in your parents' bank accounts.
Okay, thank you. There are also some questions related to a very common topic, and it's for instance, if a student is going to the UK for a short English language course, say for less than 6 months, what are the specific requirements for this kind of studies?
So for a short course, maybe a short English course, like you mentioned, Joaquin, it would be with an ETA, an electronic travel authorization. You do not need a study visa to go on short courses, but you do now need the ETA to enter the UK, and that will be sufficient.
Brilliant. And in addition to that, what's the situation if a student plans to visit the UK as a tourist before their course begins, perhaps to arrange accommodations, for instance, and then stays on to study? How does the ETA interact with the student's visa in such a scenario?
So it would depend when the visa started and when the student entered the UK. If they cannot, so once you've applied for that student visa, until it's granted, do not travel, do not enter the UK. I know sometimes something comes up and you have to go and see the new flat, but that can really cause delays and cause issues. So don't do that. But if, for example, you applied for your visa in July, it got granted, it has the start date at the end of August, but at the beginning of August, you want to enter to go and look at a flat, you can do that, but you're entering as a tourist. So it would be with the ETA, you'd apply for an ETA for that period, enter as a tourist. You would then need to come back to Portugal before your visa start date, and re-enter the country to activate the student visa. If you enter before the date on your student visa, but after your visa has been approved, you are entering as a tourist, and you do need to leave the country and come back in again to activate the visa.
Okay, thanks. One area of particular concern is also demonstrating sufficient funds. Could you please offer some key advice on how to prepare this documentation correctly and highlight any common pitfalls? Because something that comes to my mind, for instance, is if a student pays the accommodation in advance before getting the visa, should he or she justify the cost of living because he has paid that in advance, and it should be a bit confusing to him or her?
It can be a bit confusing because something like accommodation isn't reflected on the CAS usually. So usually the CAS letter will show the amount that a student has already paid, but that's taken off of tuition fees, but usually accommodation isn't included on that. So it's hard to say that you could subtract that from the cost of living section because it's not reflected anywhere on official documentation. I would recommend that you still prepare the letter with the full cost of living that the government recommends, because cost of living isn't just accommodation, it's also, you know, food, like activities, clothing, you know, it's everything through that time. So even though it could be argued that, you know, you paid the accommodation cost, therefore you don't need to show it on your letter, it could be a bit tricky if they ask to see the documentation. If it really is a struggle to have the funds necessary on that paper and you want to go down that route, then make sure you hold on to any receipts of things that you have already paid for. So if you are asked for evidence, at least you have these receipts. But I would usually, to reduce the amount of money that you need to show on the financial documents, the best way to go about it is to pay your tuition fees in advance. That way it's already reflected in the CAS if you've already paid some tuition fees, that will be reflected in the CAS, and therefore the quantity that you need to prove on the letter will be lower. I think it's always better to go down the tuition fee route rather than the accommodation route.
Okay, great. Thanks. Also, for students who might need to improve their English language proficiency before embarking on a degree or master's course, how does this typically affect the type of visa required or the specific requirements?
So someone that wants to go and do an English course, like a pre-sessional English course, for example.
Or just follow a bachelor degree and needs to improve her or his English language proficiency before embarking. How does this typically affect the type of visa required, or does it even affect?
So it can do if you meet the academic conditions but not the English conditions for your course, the university won't be able to make your offer unconditional, so you won't be able to get the CAS until you've met those English conditions. However, if you're quite close to the requirements, so imagine you are doing your university asked for a 6.5 overall in the IELTS and you had a 6. Some universities do offer something called a pre-sessional English program, where you go to university a little bit earlier and have intensive English classes. Depending on the university, sometimes they can kind of add that into your length of study and join it onto the CAS. It's kind of case by case basis, so it'd be better to check whether that's included in the visa, which means that that let you go a bit earlier to have this intensive English class. So that then they are able to give you the unconditional offer because you've met the English level required by the UK government, so you can get the visa, but not the English level required by the university. So in those circumstances, they can give you the unconditional offer, but you just have to commit to going earlier to study English. Other times, just need to usually universities will have deadlines for when you need to meet the conditions by. Usually it's in the summer in July. So if you already know now in May that perhaps you don't quite have the English level yet, you can do some intensive courses and you would have to repeat the exam.
Okay. Another very common question we receive is how far in advance would you recommend starting the student visa application process once the confirmation of acceptance for studies has been issued?
Once you have the CAS, you can apply for the visa. Actually, if you're doing it in June, it's likely to be a little bit faster because July and August are peak seasons. Universities usually cannot issue the CAS more than, I believe it's 6 months in advance of the course, but if they've issued it, then they're in their issuing period. If you have the CAS, you're already 18, you're not if you already had the CAS but you were going to turn 18 in the summer, then I would say maybe wait until you're 18 for ease of the process. But once you have the CAS and you have the financial documents ready, once everything's ready, you can apply early.
Okay, thank you. And one last more question. To recap a bit, in your experience, Amy, what are the most common mistakes or misunderstandings you see students make when applying for these visas from your experience?
The most common, I feel bad to repeat myself here, but really the most common mistakes I've seen is European students uploading the financial documents, and then I've seen that this causes delays. I think that is a very not very common mistake, but it does happen. Another one would be not taking the care or the time to look at the specific details on your CAS. So the visa application is going to ask you for your study level, your CAS number, your sponsor number. This isn't something that I've seen happen, but I can imagine that it would if you weren't familiar with the visa application process. You have 2 numbers on your CAS and your sponsor license number, which is the number assigned to the university to show where you're going to study. making sure that all of the numbers are going in the right boxes. I don't think that's necessarily a common mistake, and it should be quite clear on the form. But I guess I'm just saying, don't do it with in a rush. You know, it's an important application. It's an important document. Take the time, make sure that everything's in the right place. And if you have any doubts, you know, get in touch with someone who can help you fill it in.
Great. Thank you, Amy. So, well, it looks like we have covered all the questions that have come through for now. So, firstly, I'd like to extend a huge thank you for your time, Amy, your clarity, and all the invaluable information you've shared with us today. It's been an incredibly insightful and informative session, and I'm certain that everyone attending now has a much clearer understanding of the requirements for studying in the UK. Thank you ever so much for your expert contribution. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you, our audience, for joining us this afternoon, for your attention, your engagement, and for all the excellent questions you've put forward. We sincerely hope this webinar has been of great benefit to you and has shed some light on these important processes. We've covered a great deal today, from the specific details of the student visa and proof of funds to the new ETA and the timelines to keep in mind. Please remember the importance of forward planning and ensuring you have the correct information. Don't hesitate to get in touch with Amy or with the British Council. We remain at your disposal for any queries regarding your educational opportunities in the UK. So, as usual, you'll receive an email with a recording of this session in the coming days. We know the process can seem daunting, but with the right information, the proper planning, your dream of studying in the UK is well within reach. It's an incredibly enriching and transformative experience, and we hope we've helped you take another step towards it. Once again, thank you ever so much to Amy and to all of you. It's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and the very best of luck with your educational pursuits. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Joaquin.
Bye. Thank you.